Live now. So, hey folks, this is me, Vishwas N. I'm the host of this panel discussion that we are doing today. It's all about low code and the no code platform. But trust me, there are two giants sitting in front of you who are just about to just demystify all those thoughts that you add towards what is this and what is that
There is some internet issue.
Yeah, I think Vishwas, you are breaking up a bit.
Yeah,
Vishwas?
there is some issue on his side, internet.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he will get it corrected.
Fixed. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
definitely. Otherwise, it was all well till now, and then suddenly, as he went live, it.
Right. Just let
But I
me
guess
ping
we
him
are still
and
live. Yeah, but we are still
yeah,
live.
correct. Yes.
very bad internet connection. I
He's
don't know.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
hi.
Yeah. So thank you so much for bearing with me because I don't know why today the internet just went down and came up now. So yeah, so these are the two giants, and I don't think Amita Kapoor and Priyanka ma'am needs any introduction because they have given n number of sessions, and of course Amita Kapoor ma'am has been author of so many good books, and I'm pretty glad that she is actually talking with us all, and so on. So let's just continue the journey of discussing what is this all about, low code and the no code platform that we are talking today. So Amita ma'am and Priyanka ma'am, my first question is all about like there are platforms which we are developing, right? Are these much more sustainable for the future? Because I feel that they are developing for a purpose, but the purpose of low code and no code has really not just come up to that extent where anybody can fit into that profile. Like everybody wants some sort of a PyTorch or a TensorFlow to be there in their code. So what is it all about when we are developing something called as a platform in order to develop an AI which is low code and a no code platform?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah.
Priyanka, would you like to go first?
I know. I'll wait for your inputs, Anita. Maybe would like to hear from you first because you are an author of a TensorFlow book. So I think by right, go first and I'll complement your thoughts later on.
Yeah.
Thanks, Priyanka. So my view out here is like you see, depends. It basically depends upon the problem at hand, right? So I will try to give you an example from my own experience. Okay, I may be knowing a lot about AI, but I do not know much about, let us say, app development, right? That is a field where I have not worked much. So what happens is, if I need to develop an app, having a no code platform can give me an idea of how to go about it. Same goes for a machine learning thing. So if I am a person who has some idea but does not know how to do machine learning at all, right, then since I have some idea, I have some data, and I think this data can be useful. Okay, so I can approach these no code platforms and I can definitely ask if something is there. Means like they're all more or less they're, plug and play kind of a thing. You click here, you click there, and you get something result, right? So that can give that person a perspective, a way to see whether it is working or not. But in the long run, when you want to improve, when you want to, go with the next versioning and so on, there are limitations. At least at the present moment, there are limitations with most of the AutoML or no code platforms. So that is my perspective, that if I have an idea, I will definitely go and see whether it is feasible, how good it will look, and whether it is deployable, whether I really have a market or it on it or not. And then once it has been deployed and I have a beta version, people are using it, some of friends are using it, I've got a feedback, and I think yes, these are the things which can be improved. I can then go to a better, an expert, and do the work. That is what I would say.
Yeah, that's true because a lot of times when we talk about some platform, I think probably that thing comes up because everybody can't know it all. Like something like you can be a full stack developer, but not everything can be learned from your side. Like you can't learn AWS here, you can't learn GCP here. Like everything has its own pitfalls. Like you have to know something, and there will be a point where you will not know anything. So what is it all about according to you when you are thinking of a low code and a no code ML platform? Because I think probably ML.NET is a kind of a no code platform to me, according to me, because
Not
it's a low
really,
code.
not really. No.
Yeah.
So not ML.NET per se, but for example, like like AWS has SageMaker. So same way Azure machine learning has Auto ML, wherein it can solve a lot of your mundane problems like time series forecasting or your normal linear regression, binary classification, image classification sort of problems, right? Without having to write a single piece of code, like just provide your input data and then decide your labels to be predicted, and it will come out with all the perfect models, and then optimizers, and then it chooses whether you want light GBM or XGBoost. You don't have to break your head on what sort of hyperparameter tuning I have to do, what sort of model accuracy, and all those things. So for me, see, low code and no code platforms, right? They give an opportunity for everyone to have a bit of the AI pie, right? So I mean, it's not a territory for programmers or data scientists alone in that case. So there are people out there, who have been architecting solutions, complex landscapes, working in big data analytics for quite some time. They may not be very conversant with data science or Python libraries. They are, mostly coming in from a solutioning architecture, sort of a technical architecture sort of a background. So in that case, low code, no code helps them to embark on their AI journey without them having to ramp up right from scratch on all these technical aspects. Also for business people or for pre-sale sales people, that's a very good platform to quickly build a prototype, and then give some quick demo to your client to showcase your idea that this is what ultimately I want to build or I want to shape out. Of course, it comes with its own limitations, right? Because your no code auto ml low code platforms and all, they can only fit so much of data, or maybe only do so much of predictions, or maybe can show, I mean, out of the box can only have xyz characteristics. So if you want to have very specific use cases, solutions, or very targeted complex things which you're planning to chart out for your organization, for your businesses, then of course you have to sit down and actually architect those complex models with the help of data scientists, with the help of ML engineers. But I think it is a good place for all of the people who have not been through all this technical journey, or are not a part of the full stack technical journey, to at least onboard the AIML bandwagon. So they are, it is the territory is not a reserved territory only for maybe developers or technical people. So it's a sort of an inclusive platform, I should say, right? So now that is why AIML will become more of a household buzzword also. That is why even businesses will try to incorporate it more and more, because people will feel connected, that I need not be a rocket scientist, or I need not be a statistics PhD holder for me to be able to understand what AIML is talking about. This is what I think low code, no code empowers each and everyone to feel familiar, to feel close to the AIML journey.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because a lot of times when I think of companies open sourcing that platform, like JP Morgan has their own open source, like all the companies here that we are talking, like people have that category like which FANG, big four of the country. And I'm like, what are they? Like, of course, they have their own ways of working. They have their own production system, which costs much more bigger than what they pay for their employees. People had in that buzzword, or else in that buzz of like I should get a 1 crore package, but trust me, that production system costs more than that. So it's always there, right? So but platforms are being open source, like industry has a different perspective for all these things that we are talking today. Like AI was always a buzzword to me. Like I told to Amita ma'am, like it was like, no, actually Priyanka ma'am before the call, like it was like Stanford guys used to do it like 15 years before. So now we have that very ease of building it. Like everybody has some of an access to the code base. Like companies have an amazing set of documentation. and industry is perceiving this in a very good fashion. Like Power BI has AI support. Ignite really
Yeah.
changed the way in which we are perceiving something as a low code and a no code platform. And .NET Conf is another ball game. Like it has its own way of learning. So world is having a shift left in the security, but I feel like it's a rapid shift in the way in which we are perceiving tech also. So what is industry's perspective today when we talk about AI and ML? So I want Amita Kapoor ma'am to go further on this
Well,
discussion.
I would say like if you go with the CB Insight data for last 4 years, the funding of AI businesses have or AI startups have been continuously increasing. Right. And that kind of gives us an idea that most of the companies are investing in AI. Most of the companies which are using some form of AI are definitely getting more funding, also, more seed money, also, and so on. But the question is, as we said, like, the major reason why no code is happening is because expertise is missing. You see, what happens is to have a real expertise in AI means is not means like just going through a one or two online courses does not give you expertise. It gives you experience that okay, this is what AI is about. All right, so it can help you in knowing that okay, if I have to use AI, maybe if I have this problem, maybe AI can be a solution. But to solve a problem which is novel, which is a different problem, it requires more expertise. Right. So with that particular expertise, it is difficult to get. To be honest, it is difficult to get. Means like, although I am in this particular field, but if I have to name people who are working in the same area with the same expertise, I can just list few within India. All right, because it is limited. As simple as that, right? So the thing is, since expertise is limited, as a result we have to have some other solutions, and that is where these no code platforms and the solutions come into picture, or AutoML comes into picture. So I do not see that these are like this will not have a space. This is going to have a space because need is there, right? The number of people trying to solve a problem where AI can be useful is large. Starting from farmers, right? Even farmers are thinking of using AI in their products. But I would not expect an Indian farmer to learn Python and learn TensorFlow and learn PyTorch. But they can definitely have their data. They understand a little bit, okay, I need to have this data. This is a ripe fruit, this is a not ripe fruit, or this is a weed and this is not a weed, and make something out of it and do it. So that is possible. That is much easier doable. So that is where this sort of things come. Plus same goes with small businessmen. Means not just personal projects but small businesses, they might also have some ideas. People means people are full of ideas, especially the young generation. I've seen they are really full of ideas. Although coding and reading research papers is something which is not cup means it's not everybody's cup of tea, as simple as that, right? So it's not necessary that everyone has to go into that perspective. They can definitely work with the no code system, get their system, and once they find that it is good, then they can think of investing into it. Because getting a machine learning expertise takes requires even means money. Means like if someone will ask me to give my expertise, obviously I will charge, and that is definitely more than the charge of a cloud platform or a AutoML platform. It is definitely more than that, right? So I
Yeah.
guess that ways that makes sense, that once you're starting or once you have an idea, rather than going anywhere, the go for no code. And I guess that is the biggest market for no code, which is definitely a bigger market than any other things right now.
Yeah, because subject matter experts are so costly. Like it's not about like a doctor. Like I did a podcast with a doctor, and he doesn't belong to the fraternity of engineering, but yet he codes in TensorFlow. Like he learned it, but doesn't mean that all the doctors know that. Because today, when I look at the way in which we are architecting, I feel like more of the data set is the key here. It's not like how much of code have you written, what is the amount of code that has been added here, subject matter expertise if you have it, and you know what's there inside the data set. And today people are able to drive the models out crazy amount. Like it's not about versioning of the model also. It's like they have DevOpsified the security aspect, they have DevOpsified the ML aspect. Like it's like star ops. It's just operations at the end of the day. You just have any prefix in it, everything is sorted for you. So I think Priyanka ma'am, you have been good in terms of a lot of NLP, you have worked on a different problem statement. So you've also seen a lot of production environment, like how the
Yeah.
ML and AI platforms are being deployed and how it's booted up for the working. So it's not about the version control tools or else the tools that is coming up, but like how is industry perspective today when we talk about all these platforms?
So, see, definitely, whenever, so right now, my company where I work, we are in a ramp up mode for advanced analytics, right? So it covers data analytics, AI, IoT, everything. And one of the skill sets which we always, apart from data science and ML engineers, one of the skill sets which we always look for is ML ops, which is, I think, another upcoming field here. So we initially we had infra, then we had DevOps, and then now it is with the advent of AI, it is ML ops. So we are looking for people not just to build the models, but be able to productionalize them and be able to maintain those models, right? And then be able to quickly run those models again, fine tune them as and when required, monitor for data drift. And that is a cumbersome task, as just, I mean, given only a few data scientists. So if as a data scientist, you also have to code and have a view of the data, have the subject matter expertise, build out the model, and then also take care of the headache for productionalizing them on prem or cloud or a variety of platforms. Most of the time people ask for cross cloud or cross platform compatibility of different models. Some might say that I want my model built out in ml.net, but it should be reusable in Azure machine learning or on prem, something of that sort, right? So given all of this, nowadays, I mean, ML ops is a skill which we look for. And what this ML ops guy typically does is productionizing the model. So basically, having your model deployed as a REST API, Azure Kubernetes service. If we talk in terms of Azure machine learning paradigm, or Azure container instance, and then expose it out to your web apps to consume it to make real-time inferences, and then monitor for data drift, have hyperdrive experiments to compare out different model runs and keep a eye out on their performance. Is it going down? Is it maintaining? Do I need to retrain the model? Do I need to redeploy it? Right? And then there are a lot of libraries now coming out to support these things. So AML, Azure Machine Learning, out of the box supports all these things, right? So you can have experiments, different runs, and you can create machine learning pipelines in Azure. In Azure Designer also has a designer support to drag and drop and create machine learning pipelines, and a designer studio to drag boxes like this is my creation step, my training step, my test step, my inference step, my performance step, and validation step, those things, right? Then Azure Databricks also offers the same thing. Then there are model life cycle control libraries, like registering the model, deploying them, versioning them, which is like ML flow, right? So a lot of all these ML flow and Databricks and out of the box Azure machine learning ML pipelines, and all these are all cloud native, right? So because I work a lot with cloud computing and AI as a service on cloud platforms, so I'm not much familiar with the on-prem libraries that might also offer support of this sort, like having ML ops end-to-end support platform. So there may be on-prem tools also, but more often than not, when you talk of ML ops and model life cycle management platforms, inadvertently it is ML flow which pops up. It is the Databricks experiments and maintaining your runs and all those things. Databricks coupled with ML flow, then Azure machine learning coupled with ML flow. All of these are some of the current in vogue tools for maintaining and productionalizing your ML models.
Yeah, that's true. Because a lot of times when we think of, okay, this is what my production environment should look like, it will never be the same old production environment that you saw exactly a second before. Probably if there's a push of the code, there's going to always be a change. But Amita ma'am, I just wanted to ask you this question because you have seen different scenarios in TensorFlow, right? Like you saw version one, which was evolving, then came the version 2, but like how was it all about when industry was transitioning? I know that you have been good with both the industry as well as the academia. So how was the perspective of the people who are using TensorFlow? Because a lot of times when we talk about these platform, I think probably that experience of seeing how the TensorFlow transition actually matters a lot for a person like me, because Kiras used the back end of the TensorFlow and we were able to build out some model to some extent, but then it was a game changer when TensorFlow 2.0 came in. So what was the transition all about when you saw in the industry as well as in the academic research that you were working on?
What happens is, this whole transition is made easier by, I would say, the Google itself. Why I say that? Most of the people who start working on the any AI project, first of all, we mostly either you are using the GPUs on your own system, or you have some sort of a system being built using a virtual machine on cloud, right? Some Kubernetes cluster or something like that. Now what happens is, the moment there is a update, like for example the TensorFlow update, the support for the older version stays for very limited time, so you have to update, right? So it's as simple as that. It updates. And plus, you see, like for example, most people again use Collab for the starting of their project, AI project. Now in Collab, the default version right now is TensorFlow 2.5. So no matter where you are doing, you have to start with 2.5. And if you do not want to do 2.5, you have your program which is of the older version, then you have to uninstall the present version, reinstall the old version, which takes more time. And people are lazy, means programmers are the most laziest persons on the world, I would say. So we will not do that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because like a lot of times when I see industry which is transitioning, I think probably ML, ML with the .NET has its own way of working. Because when we see companies with 3 version now transitioning into 5, that's easy because semantics of the code still remains the same, but the frameworks are improving over a course of time. I think probably ma'am can really give out because she has been working in .NET for a very long time. But that transition is very hectic to some extent. Like the sprints change, the nature of the sprints changes. It's like okay, we are doing okay. Let's say okay to an extent okay we are doing 10 lines of code changes every single day. The sprint changes to 15, 20, depends on the version where you are. Like also there are long term supports which are given every alternate years. I think Ignite, after the .NET Conf, it's a whole new level of complexity added onto it. Like it's easier, but transitioning is tougher today. So that's what it's all about. So what are the pros and cons according to you, ma'am, Priyanka, ma'am, when you think of all these things that we have right now? Because we still want low code to be running there, but yet that abstraction has to happen automatically. Like we don't care how much of compute it happens because we are ready to pay for it. So what is it all about when we are talking about the pros and cons of the low code and the no code ML platforms? Because that transition in a company is different from a transition what we are going to have in academic world, because it's like okay, it doesn't work, so let's just take some more time and start working towards it. So what was it all about when we start about the when we state something as a pros and the cons on these platforms today? You're muted.
No, I am there, right?
Yeah, you're there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I will not answer with just ML.NET in mind. So with no, in the perspective of only ML.NET, because low code, no code is not only ML.NET headache, right? Problem, right? So because so let us consider this question holistically in respect to all the on-prem and all the cloud computing platforms, right? So there was this I don't know, 2 days ago there was this a mail which was circulating on the MVP mail group. Okay, so there's a MVP distribution list for Microsoft MVPs, and for the AI I just saw a post wherein the person was saying that even a change of the Python language in the AML portal, so he was using some, I think, some support pack 1.21, and the latest support pack was 1.39 something. And then even the change of version made him lose some accuracy of his models. So the version which he had coded with some of the framework and support pack using version 1.21 was more accurate as compared to the recent version which came in. right? So then he was trying to install, I don't know, backward compatibility, was asking people for help that do they support backward compatibility and somehow be able to get back the old pack, or be able to have the same accuracy with the new support pack versions and stuff like that. So you can see, right, all this is very fragile. Like if something changes, some very, I don't know, some changes which are not even transparent to us. Okay, we are not even obvious to us. They are transparent to us. Okay, and that can just come down crashing on all the work, good work which you did in the past, and you don't know where, because it's a black box to you. So nobody knows that how it is optimized, right? So they are not exposing out the logic to me. One good thing, like which we can call for, which we can really commend all these AutoML platforms, is like a lot of platforms are now coming up with model explainability. So it will at
Yes.
the end tell you that why it chose light GBM, or why did it choose lasso regression for that matter, and then it will say that I tried these 5 algorithms basis your data set, and this is why I think that this is your best fit. So it has a model explainability where it will give you what all it tried to do, but at the end we don't know the process, what it is employing to make these decisions. So that what if analysis, if I had done as a programmer, it's not obvious to me that what sort of intelligence went into this decision making. Even if it is model explainability, I don't know why it chose light GBM over XGBoost, or why it chose Bayesian why it chose k-means clustering over some other over some other clustering algorithm, right? So it gave me the top three or top five, but there's no, I'm not connected to the decision making which went inside that. In which case, what happens if there is some small change in the logic which is done, or some upgrade which is done, which is not backward compatible, or which can hamper the productivity or the quality of my machine learning model. So that, I think, is a very definitive con here, because all these auto ML, it's sort of a black box for us. We are not very well versed with the logic that goes into all the AI engine which is built in for auto ML, and then any sort of small change or upgrade, or language support changes. So even in AutoML, sometimes back it was supporting R in Azure ML, and now suddenly they came and said we are not supporting R anymore. Okay, or ML.NET will here on only support XYZ type of models. Okay, and then what you had done previously, then you might have to re-architect it, or you might have to reinvent it or code it from scratch. And that is something which is a risk which we have to live with in the technology world. So it's not only with ML, right? I mean, people who are front-end developers, they would totally echo my sentiments that when we all learned Angular JS as a path-breaking framework, and we all ramped up on Angular JS, boom, in 2 years came Angular without the JS thing, and it turned our world upside down. So I'm like, oh, what I learned in Angular JS is no longer valid in Angular world. And then came TypeScript, then came React. And if you want to play catch up with all these things, it is humanly impossible. So that is where all of these low code, no code, or where you are not a part of the engine building logic, or where all this is totally not obvious to you how this works. So some sort of upgrade which they do, and they will stop some support, or you're forced to upgrade, or you're forced to drop the method which you're previously using. This is something, I think, fairly common. So you have
Yeah.
to reskill, you have to recode, you have to trash out your models, or maybe you have to go back to the company saying, hey, I'll pay you XYZ for your support, and then please help me get my model working in your new upgrades or your new framework. So that's fairly common, and that is because a lot of your AI innovation is being dominated by these the prominent players. Okay, the biggest pie of the AI ML part is taken up by these prominent big four names, and which is why more often than not, we all of us are heavily reliant upon these platforms, and then any small change can be a breaking change for our ML ops, or our ML engineering, or our data science projects. So these are some of the cons, which is always the case, ML or not, right? As I said, it is the case with technology. Someone upgrades, and you might have to totally reinvent yourself, relearn something, and yeah, so that is something, a risk which we have to live with. But I think the pros outweigh the cons, and more often than not, there are lesser chances of all your code being totally rendered useless by some small change or some small upgrade. So,
Yeah,
I mean, just hoping with fingers crossed that we don't come across any such more, surprise announcements or breaking changes in our ML ecosystem. So that is also part of your responsible AI, right? I will not give you something which you don't understand, and then make you pay for it, for support or for SME sort of an advice. Yeah, so yeah, let's hope they the ethical and responsible AI frameworks live up to the promises which they make.
True.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Because a lot of times when you think of, I think Vaishnavi here just posted me a question saying that like there's a walrus operator which is coming up, which is like a colon and an equal to, which does the same old job of this one. Like, so that question will be taken later. But like, Amita ma'am, but like, how is the pros and the cons according to your perspective today when you talk about these platforms? Because these platforms are now evolving because they were born to be evolved. But like when you think of something like a startup, they are taking on giants. Like they have their own way of working in their own ecosystem. They have built their own uh, culture of operations, which is actually deploying all these models and the things like that. But like, what do you think about these platforms when you are very accustomed to the long listed lines of codes? But Python is also changing, as ma'am told. Python was also changing. So, what is it all about when you have experienced this world, and how do you perceive this technology towards in your career, like in your research, or else in any of the things that you really want to work today?
Well, first of all, I would say is that in this technology world, 6 months is one generation actually. Means if you have crossed 6 months, one generation is over. All right. So everything changes within 6 months. That said, I always tell my students, and even I tell myself again, no matter the new terminology, the new technology, it is anyways based on the old one. That means uh, understanding it and adapting to it will take time, no doubt, but it is not that difficult. It's basically, what I say is that the computer people, they have a knack of giving new names to old things. Right. So initially we called connectionist networks, then we called them neural networks, now we called them deep learning. Maybe next time we will call them something else. So we have a knack of giving names to something which was already there, and we modified a little bit and give it a new name. Right. As a result, it appears totally new to person who is shifting from old and this way. But it's not really that new. So one thing is definitely it is possible to adapt, right? And with each generation there is always improvement. That is the process of even natural evolution. So this is artificial evolution based on our efforts, where our goal is to improve. So definitely there is improvement. And moving from, like for example, if I talk about TensorFlow from 1.0 to 2.0, there are a lot of significant improvements, right? And then when we talk about the no code platform, like for example, I worked with H2O, AutoML, and Vertex AI mainly for my books, in both, for both the cases. And I would say I was really happy with the kind of things support they gave. Like for example, H2O AutoML is quite good, and like if you have a standard task, it gives you very nicely platforms. And then this Vertex AI by Google means like it gives you the facility of both. Like if you have no experience, you can start up with just clicking and getting everything, including the model explainability, right? Even feature attributes and everything. And if you are an experienced person, you can even train everything on prem and then load it on the cloud, deploy it with everything. Is that whole concept is taken care of by the Vertex AI. So that ways these platforms are good, because as we said, everyone does not know everything. Someone may be knowing one part of the whole ML workflow, and in that whole ML workflow, the actual model building task is very small, right? It requires a lot of so many other things. I mean, starting from the data collection to the deployment, making the endpoints, then performing the CI/CD and continuous training, knowing about the model drift, the data drift, both. right? All these things requires so many other people to be involved, so many other fields to be involved. So for this orchestrating all of them, these platforms become sometimes very useful. Means, like for example, I really like the way Vertex AI or Enthos is taking shape, right? And I'm sure most of the things, means like if Google is coming up with Enthos, Azure will come up with something similar, and Microsoft will come up with something similar. Means, they all just go parallel to each other, right? So I guess we have similar platforms like in all of these companies, and that is a good thing altogether. Means it makes our task a little bit easier. The only thing I say is that it should have both. Means it should be comfortable for a person who is starting, and it should also be customizable enough for person who knows and wants to have the full control. So for me, that would be the best place.
Yeah, that's true. Because like when we think of industry transition, it's not about like it's like you're revamping an entire system that you have already built. Like something like Shopify came up with a package called as Hydrogen, and nobody expected that to go to that great extent. And front end guys are very crazy about it. Like huge amount of demand is coming up for that. It's still a JavaScript at the end of the day, but what Node did against Dawn and other platforms, I think probably that's the transition that we're looking for. Yeah, I think Vaishnavi asked me about something like Vaishnavi. Yeah, I don't know her name, but like she's one of the mentees out there, and she just wanted to ask like there is an Walrus operator which came in like a colon and an equal to, and now we are seeing a different level of abstraction. The same equal to symbol is same, but like that question was very similar to what I was supposed to be posing right now, because security in the abstractions that we are talking about, like something like we know open source and we also know that open source can be vulnerable sometimes. It's if it's open source doesn't mean that it will be more secure, and there's a lot of community support. Like if it's an organization, of course, like I can say example of Equifax, Apache was at stake when Apache struts vulnerability came in, and that was raised as a CVE, and some companies just made sure that they patch those things, but some companies don't. And when you think of something like GitLab, they don't just have that n number of employees. They still have 22,000 developers who are there. And companies have their own forte of GitLab, which is coming up. Like they hire people who have contributed well on GitLab, and they want the features to be released much more quicker than what GitLab can give to them. So that's governance and policy as a code. That's the new way of saying, okay, we are using one platform, there's one governance and one policy adopted over a course of time. So what is it all about? The security that we are talking about, I think security has been a very massive impact these days, because everybody knows something or the other. Okay, there was nothing called as ransomware 2017 before. Of course it existed, but it was not that famous. When I came to engineering, it was almost famous. Like everybody knew, okay, ransomware was attacked and some hacker just solved that issue and things like that. So what is it all about when we are talking about the security of all these abstraction that we are seeing in the today's world of low code and no code ML platforms? So Amita ma'am, I think probably you can go first now.
I was reading a paper, I have not yet completed it, and the paper was basically how one can even hide a malware within a neural network, within a deep neural network. So, you know, if you are online, if you're working with anything online, if you want to be 100% secure, stay home, switch off the internet, and otherwise you have to be, ready for these kind of things, and you have to always outsmart it.
Yeah,
So that is what
because
I would say.
like code can be very decisive. Trojan can be even written in a code. Like Jenkins files can be written in such a way that in a backend anybody can really go and mine a Bitcoin. Like that's how vulnerable Jenkins is. Like when you go to HackerOne, YAML files and Jenkins files, they have their own bug bounty program, so anybody can solve that. So what is your take on that, Priyanka?
See, I'll just give one very good example for again Microsoft. So no, I mean no brownie points for guessing that. So with Microsoft, when they did not open source their platform, right? When C Sharp, Visual Studio, and the .NET framework was very closed, which means all the security and all the inner workings, the CLI, everything was Microsoft proprietary, correct? And then there came a threat when C Sharp Microsoft Platform Visual Studio was a dying platform. Okay, so if you searched for .NET Framework 4.5 or 4.6 prior to their path-breaking .NET Core, which then they open sourced it. Okay, so which means it was all put on, the code was given out and it was open sourced before the advent of .NET Core. Then only C Sharp and Microsoft Development Platform was, I think, maybe at the bottom of the popularity developer popularity ladder. Okay, so, which means open source for sure drives innovation. There is absolutely no second thought about that. And as I think Dr. Amita, absolutely she put it. I mean, she hit the bullseye in very few words. So I am being very loquacious here, but she said that you have to. I mean, if you want to have brilliant ideas, innovation, people contributing, coming out with new things, then absolutely, I mean, that is a risk which you harbor, correct? And again, I mean, against all the constructive programmers out there, what is, I mean, you need to weigh in the number of malicious programmers, right? The people with malicious intent who are actually out there to destroy something good. And then again, when you see that when you're putting out code or when you're contributing to this open source framework, so when you're contributing to this open source libraries, then there are also code reviewers who are going to review your code, who are going to block you from or even sometimes
contributing.
people just come. I think people just come there with the just feature requests as well. Like, I just want this feature without any constructive contribution. So then there are ways of weeding out these irritants. I would put them as, and yeah. So I mean, all these low code, no code abstraction in the future, it might it might still resurface, or all these ransomware and all these trojans might make their way into the liberty and the freedom which open source affords all of us. But then I think open source was made with an intent of bringing in all constructive minds together, have them contribute to request which the product owner hadn't thought of, or maybe with a view to make the product reach a far more audience than it was earlier envisaged for. Okay, and then have more features, have the product turn into a platform, for example, right? So more often than not, people who are using this open source will be people with the constructive and positive thoughts. Okay, and yeah, I mean, see, internet as such, with or without open source, internet as such is a dangerous place, right? I mean,
It
all
is.
the apps which you use, all the social media which you easily use day to day, you leave a heap of digital footprint, which again is a tool which AI ML employs to build a very a deep profile of you. So I mean, if I was not there, I won't be surprised that the time I spend online, all the data which AI ML would gather about me, they could easily make a a speech and make it appear that it was me who was giving the speech in person. So all
Yeah.
this is going to be there absolutely at any point of time, right? So we need to have a faith in the overall good intent of the developer community, and people will keep on having open source. Maybe there will be other security frameworks around it, more stringent checks around check-ins, or how you branch, or who is branching, or is it a bot or not, and you will have to undergo various other validation methods to see your to prove your code is legit, or you are a human programmer contributing to the source code. But yeah, I mean, the source, I mean, open source is, I think, something which is going to be around, and that is helping all of us see better innovations, see quicker innovations, and see quicker product rollouts as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think any final notes that you want to give and you want to share for the people, because your final inputs, I think people, what you just hear was just the experience of experiencing different problem statement. Like, not all problem statement looks the same, but the problem statement just keeps evolving over a course of time. You can't complain that, okay, this problem statement was good, so I'll just work on this. So it's all that experience that you gain over a course of time. And also, any final thoughts that you just want to share for us, because your insights are going to be more helpful for us in the future world. So yeah.
Well, my insight is go for the idea. Idea is the most important thing. Coding and everything else is secondary. Idea is the most important thing. If you have the good idea and if that idea can take shape, go ahead. And today, as we just said, like open source is there. If you have an idea, just put it up. Means if you cannot do it, others can do it. Means like, my thing is whoever, but if the idea can take shape and if the idea is good enough, why not? Let it
Yeah,
be used for the benefit for everyone, especially with the climate change and everything happening. I guess it's our responsibility to do something about all these things, and there may be person who may not know anything code but can come up with some good solution about these issues. Means rather I would say right now as a AI person we are contributing to the greenhouse effect. We like the data centers which are working, they're consuming so much of energy. So
Absolutely.
we are kind of having a negative impact on the environment altogether right now. But maybe if someone can come up with a positive thing and can take care of what all negatives we have introduced in the whole situation, in the whole pipeline, why not? And I do hope that it happens. So everyone with a good idea should try and do it. So it should be open for everyone. And that is where I guess the no code and low code platforms, I say, far exceed the whole cons that they might offer.
yeah, that's true. Yes, Priyanka, ma'am, anything that you want to say?
See, I will just, end with a note that AI is not the be all and end all, right? I mean, AI, ML are the buzzwords today, might be replaced with something else tomorrow, right? So, we need to approach all the problem statements, all the existing business or technical scenarios with a very constructive mindset. So, I mean, have like AI is now being harbored for initiatives like AI for good, right? So AI for Earth, AI for good, where AI is being used for protection of endangered species or for mapping out endangered species in remotely inaccessible terrains. Okay, or for accessibility purposes, meaning harnessing AI for disabled people with disabilities, hearing disabilities. With the intellectual disabilities like learning dyslexia and all those things, right? So what I feel is when you talk of low code no code platforms, then for all these people it is very easy to onboard the AI journey for all these scenarios, for all these people. So tomorrow, I have a citizen, I mean, I want to be a citizen scientist. Okay, I want to have an idea to maybe build a small app for monitoring the flora and fauna in my region, or doing some sort of a POC on the dwindling migratory bird patterns in my region because of mangroves deforestation or whatever the reasons. Okay, and then as a very small individual person without any technical skills at my disposal or any tools at my disposal, then I have to fall back on these low code no code platforms for me to carry my idea forth, right? I mean, at least have a sort of a rudimentary product built in, and then advertise that idea to the wider public, and then they take it up and then maybe make something out of it, right? So all these low code no code platforms, I think they serve a very unique purpose. They serve a very I mean, they are for people with hardly any technical awareness, from those people to the people with the highest AI/ML skill sets and the data science expertise, right? So these tools are making AI more inclusive, I feel. So we are talking of diversity and inclusion all the time. I think low code, no code, auto ML are the key to these inclusiveness for AI and ML. And yeah, so I think that is what it should be employed for, and that is the purpose it should continue to serve. Then only it will bring in the sort of constructive AI revolution which we are all always after.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think thank you so much for all the great insights from the great speakers. I think, trust me, they just spoke their experiences, but trust me, just go back, listen to their sessions. I think Amita ma'am is also having her YouTube channel. I think just go on, just just comment on that section saying that, ma'am, we need some more videos. I think probably she'll get motivated and she'll start putting some more videos at the end of the day. I think best of the both worlds. I think the academia as well as the industry was there in the panel, and we just were able to experience all of that through the way they talked and everything. And I think thank you so much, folks, for being part of this. And also thank you so much to all the panelists who are there, because it's an honor to be part of you, and talking with you was such a great thing that I could ever experience. And thank you so much, ma'am.
Thanks,
Ma'am
Vishwas, and
and
thanks,
ma'am.
Priyanka. It was nice meeting you. Okay.
Yeah, bye. I'll end the
Likewise. Thank
broadcast.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.